Hey guys,
On
I
the
think we're
air.
live. I think we're on the air. I got Jack Herrington here with us, which is amazing. This guy has amazing YouTube channel. You probably already know who he is, so I don't really have to give an introduction. But I am going to ask Jack to introduce himself, if just in case you've been living under the rock. So, Jack, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Let's see. So I advertised I'm a principal full stack engineer. I worked recently at like Nike and Walmart Labs. So those are some of the bigger places you might know about. I've also done um, some startup stuff recently, and that's been really great. But a lot of what I talk about on YouTube is React and all the way from like the basics, how hooks work and the best ways to do that, all the way up through crazy kind of, high end architectural topics like module federation and stuff, and the kind of thing that like work for like the Fortune 500. So, and I'm also doing React Roundup, which is great. Awesome podcast if you want to check that out. So, yeah, and
Yeah, no,
just hang out on a Friday night.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like I said, thanks for being here. And the first time I saw your videos, I really like, how well and clear you present the information in a way that almost anybody could understand. And I know I asked you before the show, but what was your reason for starting the YouTube channel, and what were you hoping as a goal or outcome?
So I was doing brown bags over at Nike, and uh, I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed like coming up with all the examples and then teaching everybody. And I'm like, dang, this is actually pretty decent content. I could just put this up on YouTube, and thousands of people will come and watch, and it'll be great. And then of course, like you put it out, and like 25 people watch it. You're like, whoops, okay. And I made every single mistake you can possibly make when it comes to building out YouTube content, not doing the thumbnails, not doing the SEO. And of course, nobody's going to watch that. So, but now it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah, like what I like is I really
Yeah.
appreciate people that have a lot of experience, and you could say kind of already made it in the field, kind of sharing their knowledge and passing it to like the new generation. And I feel it's like a very kind and nice thing to do,
Mm.
because there's plenty of people on YouTube. But like I was saying earlier, it's really cool to see people that are still working in the field and are not YouTubers first, but just happen to share their experience. I think that makes YouTube like the best platform, because you have people like yourself sharing stuff that could help someone either break into the field or learning to code. So, with that being said, what got you interested in coding to begin with, and how long you've been doing it for?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. How long have I been doing it for? So I just did I look back, kind of on technology, and it's pretty. I think I started coding when I was 11, and I'm
Wow.
now 53. Yeah. So I started off on the TRS-80 Model 1. And here's the deal. So I was an absolute reject in school. I was terrible. Like I was failing grades and all that. Turns out I'm dyslexic, right? I just reading is not a big skill of mine. But for some reason, coding just seemed to work, right? And so I was just trying the TRS-80 and playing with basic, and it was like making space invaders and stuff like that. And it was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And it was a nice virtuous cycle. I would go and make a game, and I would take it to school, and the kids would play it. Yeah, this is great, and it made me feel good. And so, I never went to college. I taught myself, C, C++, Objective C, kind of the whole enchilada of C's, and then C sharp and JavaScript and Python and all of that, all the way through. Um, and it's funny because I don't remember what the original title of this podcast of this YouTube video was, but I was like, kind of like what keeps you coding, right?
Right.
And so I was looking back through my history. I'm like, here's an interesting question. Would you have stopped after like Steve Jobs went up on stage and like introduces the iPhone? You're looking at that thing, you're like, man, I can code. That's the coolest thing that I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's going to change the world. Why would I not want to code for that? Right. And like every single year, one of these wickedly cool things is coming out. Like everything, like in 1988, I remember that was like, a I guess, pivotal year. Like Next Step came out, Objective C came out. Steve Jobs is doing it again with the pizza, with the cube and all that. And it's like, why would I ever stop? And so, yeah, here I am. It's like because it's fun. Because at the end of the day, I like making software. I like working with other people. I like when they're happy with the software that we make. I like iterative building out code in an iterative way, and then I like teaching people about how that's done because I think anybody can do it. That's the thing. If
Yeah.
I'm not particularly a smart guy, right? So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, no, totally. I like the fact that you're creating something and you have something to show for it, which kind of like makes you feel that sense of accomplishment when you create something or code something, rather than just doing something
Yeah,
and then going home empty-handed. Speaking of, you mentioned
right.
a lot of different languages. You started with C, pretty much did the whole gamut.
Oh
For
God.
someone starting out, would you say at the beginning, try a little bit of everything, or would you say pick a language and try to get some sort of competency in it? Like in your opinion, what would you recommend?
I would pick one language and at least get over all of the basic core components of a language. So, your operands, variables, constants, functions, data structures, arrays, objects, um, and then probably into classes. I would say not 100% on the front end. Do you need that anymore? But like
Right,
certainly good. And then get that rock solid base in a single language, and then when you are trying out for a job, you're like, man, I know JavaScript. Let's just say I would recommend JavaScript, honestly.
yeah,
um, you get that rock solid base in JavaScript, and then that's how you fight imposter syndrome, right? Is you really work that skill every day. And then you kind of build that as your base. I know JavaScript super well. And then as you get more interested in coding, then you'll start to like, oh, maybe I want to do some ML stuff. So maybe I'll learn like R or Python.
right.
And it's not your strong suit language, but you're just kind of learning new stuff. You're learning interesting new skills as you go along, and they're expanding your mind with new ideas. And that's actually one of the things I really like to do on my channel is like this video that I have coming up this next week is on XState, which have you heard of XState?
Not yet. Haven't used it yet. I might have heard it in
Okay. All
passing.
right. Well, yeah, yeah. So it's a finite state machine state manager. Really cool. And it really changes the way that you model your state in your application in a really practical way. And it's just cool. Like if you think about like, oh, I'm really good at Redux, or I'm really good at MobX or whatever, and this just gives you a way to like, oh man, like here's a new palette of things that I can use to like model my state in different ways, and it just expands your mind. So that's one of the cool things about it. Software is there's always something new to like bake your noodle and make you think differently about how you do all your work.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. By the way, I just shared the link to Jack's YouTube channel. Definitely go check it out. He has very amazing, knowledgeable videos as well. Um, it's interesting that you say that, like, pick JavaScript, at least for, most people trying to break into the field. When I first started learning, I tried to learn everything at once, and I ended up learning nothing. And I ended
Oh
up like
no.
spinning,
Ooh,
spinning,
yeah.
spinning my wheels for many, many years. And literally, my
Oh
friend
no.
said, "Hey, if you want to get hired, learn JavaScript, learn React, and be like competent enough where you could build a project with it." And then that's what I committed to before
Yeah.
trying to do anything else, and that kind of helped me a lot. And so it seems that a lot of people, they'll start learning something and then they'll see like a cool YouTube video and they'll be like, "Oh, I want to learn that," and then they're like, "Oh no, I want to learn that," and then
I gotta
a
learn
year
that.
goes by,
Yeah.
2 years goes by, and you're like, "Oh my God, like." Like what is happening? And so definitely you would say encourage people to learn one language, understand the basics, and then like after.
And do exactly what that guy says. Like build a project,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Build something with it. I think so many people run into this thing where they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna read a whole book on this,
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
gonna or watch a whole YouTube series on this," and then they don't do anything with it. You gotta build something. Because that's the only way that you really understand it. Like I'm learning Dart right now, so I'm learning
Oh,
Dart
nice.
and Flutter because I think, oh, these are cool. Yeah, right. Um, and I made that mistake. I mean, I know better than that. But I'm sitting out there on the porch, like my wife and my daughter are watching TikTok videos, and I'm reading a book on, Dart and Flutter, and I'm like, this is great. And then I like go to actually try it out, and I'm like, God, I don't
It's like,
remember
what am I
anything. What
doing?
was it? Hold on. How do I make like how do I what am I doing? Like this language is so different. And then it's like, no, no, no. You've got to actually build something. You learn, build, learn, build, learn, build, learn, build.
And that's so true. And I feel like everybody falls into this tutorial hell mentality where you just do one course after the other and you have
Oh
this
yeah.
fake sense of accomplishment. But then when you sit down at an empty terminal and you try to start a project by yourself, you have no idea what to do. And interestingly, I started live coding. I don't care if like I suck or don't, whatever, it doesn't even matter to me. But I started live coding every Tuesday night to force myself to actually build stuff from scratch, get stuck, fail, and try to figure stuff out, because I realized that if I don't force myself to actually build something myself, I'll never get the skill that I need. And one of the things when I first got my first job, there's an expectation that you actually able to do that at some level. And maybe like a lot of people when they get their first job, they tell me that they deal a lot with like solving bugs to kind of ease their way into it. But my first company that I got to, probably a better example, they literally had me implement the feature, and I felt like I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing
Hmm.
right now, because I just haven't spent enough time uh, building stuff myself from scratch. And so, from your experience, what would you say a junior developer should be able to do? And I know it's kind of wide range question, but a lot of people ask, and I feel like either a lot of
Hmm.
people underestimate it or underestimate it. I feel like because when I first got hired, I was like, oh man, that's a lot of catch up I have to do.
Yeah, I mean, certainly depends on whether you're doing front end or back end or whatever.
Right, right.
Well, let's just talk front end.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think I would only hire a junior engineer probably into an existing code base, right? And
Yep.
so you'd have prior art in that code base about how you manage state,
Right.
what the linting is, how much or how little it's unit tested. And then yeah, I would go and actually this is really important. I, you when you're onboarding somebody, make sure that in the first couple of days that you give them either some bugs like you wanted them to give you, or you give them a small feature like, hey, just move these buttons around, like do the, or make it like get us to where we support dark mode. I mean, if that was easy, right? The kind of thing that
Right.
was like be
Yeah.
any other engineer on the team like 20 minutes, an hour's worth of
Right.
work, right?
Yeah.
And then you give that person, like, even if it takes them a day, right, to
Right.
get it set up, get everything going, like if they can get that checked in through PR into production, like they're like, I belong on this team, right? And
Right.
they made their bones, to use like an old mafia term, and but they made their bones, and they like, I now I feel like I'm here, and that gets rid of the imposter syndrome. It gets rid of that notion of people on the team like, oh, I don't know, that
Right.
person, like, he
Right.
could answer the questions on the interview, but can he really do the
But
job? I don't know.
yeah.
It's like, no, no, no. Like, we gave him some stuff. He could do it.
Yeah, and I think it's very important. I think like this is where my first kind of mishap, not my fault, but the company that I got hired with, they didn't have a good onboarding process, and it was a very toxic place where I
Mhm.
started working. And I feel like
So
if they
common.
did, and if they did what you're describing, which I had in my second and third job, that would have been a nicer process, and it's a quick win for the person starting out, and they really feel like part of the team. Um, and you're setting up your developers for success. And the issue my company had, like, they literally had maybe five top like developers that worked there for like 20 years, but everybody else would be, it's like a revolving door. Every month they would quit because like their environment was just so toxic. And I was like, how are you going to train anybody to do anything at your company? uh, with that being said, in terms of the
Can
new,
I jump in there
go ahead.
about like
Oh,
that?
of course,
I think
anytime,
part of the
anytime,
problem
anytime.
was
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah, yeah. The problem is the 20-year people have been in that job for the same job for 20 years, right? Because more often than not, those folks are not learning new skills. And that's why you need to kind of circulate through go to some small places, and then you'll learn, like, how you learn we're going to do Electron, or we're going to do React Native, and you're like, oh wow, that's not my thing, but I'm going to learn it, right? And you get you keep your skills fresh. But if you stay in the same gig for 20 years, your process chops get stale, your coding chops get stale, and then people come in and they're like, I'm not going to learn anything from these folks. Like
Right.
they're
Right.
backwards. They don't do agile the right way, or whatever, or they're stuck in the past. They're using whatever, rest when I not that rest is a standard, but whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And what's interesting, like some of those like 20-year-old, like 20-year-old, 20-year vets, they have this elitist like mentality where they're like, I'm better than you. Like literally,
Yeah.
people would look at you like you're stupid, like when you ask a question, and so that would really dismotivate
That
beginners.
sucks.
Yeah, trying to ask questions because I would literally be in the fear of getting ostracized by one of the head developers, and so I would spend like a week sitting staring at my computer, being stuck on one problem that if I was at a normal team and I would have just asked a simple question, somebody could be like, oh, yeah, just check this out. Here's an example in our current code base, something that you could look at as a
Exactly.
pattern and blah, blah, blah. And that was like really kind of for me, it was just like, oh, man, like I'm afraid to ask questions. And a lot of times, week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, and then like, what did you do? You're like, I didn't do anything. And so my question would be, when someone's starting out, there's that common fear, like I don't like imposter syndrome. It's like I don't want to be called out that I don't know anything. So a lot of people do hesitate to ask questions. So for a new someone starting out, how would you recommend they ask questions? And is there such a thing as a stupid question? If that makes sense, because I think you know what I
I
mean by stupid question. Because it's like if your answer is like, "Did you even Google that?" It
literally
was
did a
probably a
video on
stupid
this.
question. Yeah, I gotta
I
pay more
literally did a video
attention.
on this.
I gotta
No,
pay
no, no,
more
it's fine,
attention on
fine.
your
But
channel.
like the number one thing, then yeah, it was like, what is it? Like five common, I got it. It was some five common mistakes junior developers make, or something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
and the first one was, there are stupid questions, because everybody says there aren't stupid questions. You ask anything you want, da 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 da. But I would say, if you are stuck, right? There's two ways of thinking about it. There's like, oh man, I'm stuck. Oh my god, I'm an imposter. Oh, like, oh, the world's falling in on itself. Why am I in this job? Blah 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 blah. Right? And how long am I going to wait before I ask? And all that. Or you can look at it as an opportunity. Like, hey, I'm going to give myself 10, 15 minutes. I'm just going to try. Like, I'm just going to look at the error message, try and work out, like, what is this telling me? Like, this is undefined. What what did I do before? And how did that change it? And maybe I can figure this out on my own. Like, give yourself that time and give yourself that opportunity. And then if that doesn't work, at least when you ask the question, you'll be able to say, hey, these are the steps that I tried,
right.
and that is going to give the lead, or the senior, or whatever, like, oh, okay, this person actually tried, right? They didn't
Yeah.
just like jump on DM and like, I'm stuck, and like they
It's like, yeah,
actually tried. Because nobody wants to be in, like, everybody's trying to get their job done. Like, senior engineer, they're
right.
still coding. Lead engineer, probably still coding. And when you're coding, you want 3-6 hours a day of just like
Yeah. Yeah.
focus
Focus
time.
time. Yeah.
No DMs, no none of that stuff, because it's a hard skill. It's like a hard thing to do. And if somebody comes at you and they're like, here's this thing, and you're like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? This is an undefined variable, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like, what are you
you
doing?
it's null. Like, he could have figured this out on your own. Like, it is a I don't want to say it's a dumb question, but yeah, right. I mean, we both
I
know that, like, yeah, like, give your reputation a break, ask good questions, and give yourself the opportunity to figure stuff out.
Yeah, and I think like it's an important thing for people to understand because like you said, nobody wants to show up and you had like and help you if you put zero effort to even try to Google. So I usually like try to Google something, try to read the docs, try to look at some
Yeah,
examples in current code that we have to kind of so at least I know how to direct the question when I ask it. So when someone
right.
gives you an answer, they're able to do it in 5 minutes, like, hey, this is what you got to do, blah blah blah, and now you get to it. But it's so funny. I was so scared to ask questions when I got started, and I literally had 8-hour days, so I would just sit, stare at my computer, being like, "What am I doing here right now?" But luckily, I didn't get fired, so that's eventually I figured it out. But don't be shy asking questions.
And that's why I
Um,
put a time limit on it. I'm like
yeah, time
15,
boxing,
10,
100%. Yeah,
15, time box it, right?
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
do that thing. Cause I'm gonna tell you, like by hour 8, man, you are sweating bullets. You're like,
You're scared. You're like, it's
you're
like when you're
talking
going
to
on
your
the
girlfriend.
chopping
You're like, I'm
block.
not sure I'm gonna
Yeah.
have a job tomorrow, man. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Like these
Yes.
guys, they're gonna.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna walk in tomorrow, and they're gonna be like, "Here are your papers, boss. You're out of
Yeah.
here." You know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Which is like
Of
I
course,
was
and that's
telling you.
not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, right? Before the stream, by the way, I kind of said to you, my first 6 months, I felt like I was gonna get fired, and I didn't, and I was still surprised. But I feel like kind of
Yeah.
something that when people starting out, like you obviously have your mid-level, your senior developers, and they're solving completely different problems. And so if you're coming in as a junior, there's just certain problems they much rather pay you to do, even if it takes you a day or 2 days or even a week to solve, than someone who's working at that senior level and they're dealing with like much higher problems that they need to solve themselves. So like I used to feel bad that I couldn't solve it within like the first 10 minutes, but then I realized it's like they're giving you stuff because it makes sense for you to do, and it's also like a way, like I feel like a lot of people understand that there's going to be some learning happening for new developers on their job.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, and the weirder the environment, the more learning there's going to be. Like if you've got special, I don't know, build processes or some domain specific language you guys have come up with on your own that nobody knows and there's no way to Google it. That's of course you're gonna have a learning curve when it comes to that sort of stuff. But I will say, be communicative and keep some notes. It's amazing. I've been in this game for, I don't know what, 42 years, right? And I just started a programmer's notebook, so I can keep track of, like, here are all the notes that I have um on the videos I want to do. Here's all the research, like the Dart stuff and all that. Like, it just, like all the links that I get and everything like that.
Do you have a
So,
physical
but
notebook?
as you're going through your 8 hours, no, no, no. I think
Sorry
I used
to interrupt.
Quiver.
Okay. Yeah.
No, hey, no problem.
Yeah.
So I'm using Quiver, and it supports like Markdown, a couple of different things. It's good, and so yeah, I'm anyway. They use that, and then like when you do your stand up in the morning, and people are like, how do you go? You're like, oh, well, I checked out this, I checked out that, and I got stuck, and I didn't want to interrupt anybody's day, but here's what I got, and maybe
Yeah.
if you have some time, maybe you can help me out.
Yeah, no, it's awesome tip like to keep a notebook. I actually started recently doing the same thing. Found this thing called Obsidian. I guess you could also take notes and Markdown. But I also want to give a chance for people in the chat to ask questions. So let me do one question before we continue. So Jared asks, what should I do as a SWE at a company that is slow to adopt best practices, CI/CD, unit integration tests, etc. I feel like I'm falling behind my peers and it's hurting my career goals.
Do a 5 whys on like why they're not doing that, or what the what the underlying issues are, and then try and come up with the one thing that if you were to do it, like let's say CI/CD, that it would be that pivot that would move the culture of the company in a permanent way. I think, like, when I got into Nike, there was a lot of stuff that was like, whoa, these guys, there's a lot to be improved, right? And I made the mistake of trying to improve like 5 things simultaneously, but it's a big boat and it doesn't move like that. You have to like find one thing and just be relentless on it. And if you are that guy who you want to go and bring in, like, as an example, the CI/CD is actually really a good thing to do. Or unit test. I'm not sure, was that on the list? Yeah, unit test. Okay. If anybody can tell me what the difference between unit tests and integration tests are, that would be awesome. Like, nobody seems to know what that is. Yeah. So yeah, and that would change the culture, and it changes it in a permanent way, right? Because I think everybody will start to see the value in it. I think that one of the problems with it, people just don't recognize the value. Another important thing is, don't just talk about it. Like, don't just say, "Oh, here is the potential thing that we're gonna do," and I'm gonna go draw some whiteboard stuff. Like, if there's a way that you can actually physically show in the app or like, take the smallest project you can and do CI/CD on it and say, "Look, now when I check in, it's built and it's tested automatically. I don't have to worry about it. It's all just done." Like, and people, "Oh, wow, we could have that in the other one." And then it's like, "Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well,
makes
then,
sense.
then you can get into the backlog and you can, yeah, it's, oh, I get it. I see." As opposed to like the whiteboard thing where they're like, "Oh, I don't know, whatever, you know." Yeah.
So, so this brings up interesting question because you see, like, learn to code in 3 weeks or 3 months, get a job that pays $1 billion, and we just talked about, like JavaScript, like Git, CI, CD, testing. That's already a lot of stuff outside of like the basics. So, um, what would you recommend if someone had, say, in 3 months? What would be the kind of for front end, let's say? What some of the things would you say you should probably be able to learn or be familiar with? Or is 3 months even a realistic? For me, it
Wait, I mean, are
took
we
me more than a
starting?
few
What are you
years.
starting
You know
with?
what I mean? Starting with nothing.
I mean,
Like
what
let's
are
say
you starting
someone,
from? Like, starting from nothing?
right?
Starting like
So
from the fry cook kind of level?
right. So, because I hear that a lot.
Um,
I fried chicken, and then all of a sudden I work
I
at
was a
Google. I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
out of
What's
here.
what's that
Sorry,
guy?
I don't care.
Danny Thompson
Listen,
is
don't
always
get me
like, "I
started.
fried
Don't get me
chicken."
started. Don't get me started. Because 'cause I have my opinions. But no, yeah. So for this is like the issue that I have is that there's so much stuff out there that like people get like because all that sounds exciting. You know what I mean? Like, but in reality,
Yeah.
it's not the complete truth, and there's outliers, right? There's like people that
No.
just get lucky and did the right things at the right time. And so for me, like, it took me like 2 years to feel comfortable to do my job. Like, I'll just gonna be honest, and I don't know if I could have done it faster. And so to
Yeah.
me, like, also like knowing what I know now, like, so when I started to learn to code, basically every year, like, I learned what I don't know. And then there's like way more to learn, and I feel like, oh my god, how am I even doing anything? And so I feel like it's a disservice to set unrealistic expectations for people, because once they try for that 3 months or 6 months or however long it takes, they lose all the motivation because they feel like I must be dumb. Like I must not. No, you're not dumb. It's just hard. You just have to put in your time and your work. And so, what do you think? Like, forget the 3 months. What do you think would be like a realistic path? Someone starting out from nothing. To be able to get to that junior level. I know it's a difficult question to answer, but just like a ballpark idea.
I would say at least 6 months to get to, kind of basic JavaScript front end, kind of competency, HTML, because you need HTML, you need CSS, you need JavaScript, generally speaking.
Yep.
And then, oy vey, right? To get a serious job, you got the React, right? And then React, oh my God, React is its own. Like, I know folks have been doing React for 5 years, and like, they really don't understand hooks. They don't understand how React works internally. And it's just like, oh, okay. It's like voodoo, oh, wow, that
Right.
worked, and I'm not going to touch it
How?
anymore.
It's like,
That's actually, yeah, actually, that's an interesting thing. Like, there are some like character traits or like things that you need to do to go from like junior to senior. And one is, don't ever say, "Oh, it worked, and now I'm not going to touch it anymore." Like, it wasn't working, and then I got it working, and then it's like
it's
weird. It's like some sort of incantation that happened, or I
yeah,
went over to Stack
yeah,
Overflow, and I copy and pasted this weird incantation into the code, and now I don't, and now it works.
yeah,
I'm not going to touch it anymore. I mean, it's good.
yeah.
But no, 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 my friend. You need to understand why what you did worked. That's really important. Like, that's the actual learning. You're like avoiding all of the actual learning by doing that.
Yeah, and I'll give you another funny example why this is important. Which is funny, when I first started to do that, I was naive also, so it was kind of funny in that case. But I started working on this project that basically had 30 different developers that came and went, and so there will be code in the code base with like weird comments that made no sense. and you would
Oh yeah.
literally not be sure, like, does this even do anything? So what I would do, like, I would read the code line by line and try to follow the logic, and I would literally delete blocks of code that literally did nothing
Oh
anymore,
yeah.
but people never removed them. They left them in there. It was like code rot,
Right.
and I was just like, that
Yeah.
was like the game, like, how much can I remove before I break this app, and that kind of made me realize, it's like, look, you got to pay attention and try to make sure that you understand what is happening, because if you don't, that's an easy way to like add code rot or continue to like create an application that once stuff breaks, you're kind of not sure like where to start to fix it, which I thought was like, yeah, crazy. But anyway, back to the question of like
I've seen it all,
learning
man.
this
I had a
stuff.
guy who like said to me, um, I was going through the code and I'm like, dude, like these files aren't even included. And he's like, oh yeah, I was high last night. I just checked them in. I'm like, what? Wait,
Yeah, that works.
what?
Just put
I
them in
mean,
there. It's
hey,
fine.
like
Put them in
I'm
there.
not.
It's fine. It's
Oh,
all good.
okay. It's not like I haven't. I haven't. It's not like I haven't done it with my own personal code, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like work. Come on now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's interesting, like, and we'll come back to the question that I asked, like, just to kind of say, like, what I try to do, like, on my personal project, try to pretend like it's a project that I'm working on the company. So I'll do PRs for myself, just so I could follow like
oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
process, and
Good idea.
just because I don't want to like cut corners just because it's my personal projects, because I probably do it anyway already. So I want to like at least push the best practices right away. But coming back to that original question, in terms of like the basic understanding to get hired as a junior. We talked about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. And so would you say someone
Look at you
like,
trying to keep on target with this.
I mean,
Good.
like, to me, it's interesting because I don't want to give
No,
people
you're a good
wrong
interviewer.
advice, and I think it's like, because people come into me, they're like, look, okay, I get this all the time, right? I get this all the time. It's like,
Yeah,
look, I
yeah,
did like some HTML courses, I did some CSS, I did JavaScript, I did this React. Check out my portfolio, and it's all like Udemy courses that they completed, projects that they did, and then I'll be like, well, what did you build yourself from scratch? And then they're like, what do you mean? Like, I just have these projects that I built following a tutorial. I'm like, but what did you build yourself? Like, where you had
yeah.
to like struggle through like the code and finding bugs because stuff doesn't work like you expected. Like, and they're like, I didn't. And I'm like, well, can you? And the answer is like, no. And I feel like those people, they might apply, but when it comes to like getting a take-home project or whatever, they're not able to complete it. So I'm like, there's got to be some sort of like level where you're able to gauge yourself, like, okay, I could build a basic project with set technologies with React. I understand how prompt
Yeah.
state work, blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, so if that makes sense. So like, how what would you say someone should be able to build to be like, okay, I'm a junior developer? Simplify the question.
That's a great question. Some kind of create React app front end that makes some interesting calls, maybe to Firebase. Like I think
Yeah,
Firebase is actually really good, because then you don't have to worry about like the front end and like the back end so much.
yeah,
Obviously, if you want to really take it into the reality world of real production, like you're gonna need like security and all that.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that would be to me like a good proof of like the full end to end thing. Because like a problem is, well, actually, Remix has these really cool kind of starter kits nowadays that give
Yeah,
you database stuff, auth, kind of auth. I mean, it's close. You basically have to pick an auth vendor and follow the script and whatever. But you know, and it actually deploys all that for you. So that's pretty cool.
yeah.
And you can do the API stuff, and that would show me. But do I expect like a junior developer to do that? No, I mean, I
So
guess no. I would think I think there's like building your own thing, which you need an API for. But like at
yeah.
the job, generally speaking, you have an API team that you're going to talk to.
So
Like at any large job, there's going to be an API team.
So I feel though, like, it's been my experience, just every job that I had, there's always like, do you understand what CRUD is and how to implement it from at least from the front end when you're working against an API, and understand general concept of
Yeah,
authentication. And like I like how you mentioned Firebase, because you could make a full
hmm
CRUD application with Firebase with
totally.
authentication. The thing that I don't like about Firebase is when I got my first job, they expect you to be familiar with SQL database and how to work with a SQL or Postgres API. And so for me, I was like, okay, let me I love Firebase, it's really good, but let me find something that's a little bit easier. And I found this thing called Strapi, which is like a CMS that allows you to create an API really
Mm-hmm.
easily. So as a front end developer, you could easily do it, and you're able to use Postgres QL, which kind of mimics kind of what you would do, and you're able to have authentication and full CRUD, functionality. Funny now, people will
Yeah.
be like, "Well, Paul, you work there now, so you're gonna say Strapi is the best." I'm not saying Strapi is the best. I just happen to use Strapi, and then
Oh, okay. Plug.
eventually they hired me. No. Well, this is the thing I'm saying, because I want to come back to this point. I talked about Strapi for a long time, and then I got into their radar, and then somebody said, "Why don't you apply there?" And I did. It's not that I'm a Strapi shield. I've been using Strapi, and then they happened to hire me because I guess I built enough experience. But it doesn't have to be Strapi, but there's so many CMSs available that allow you to create a API yourself really quickly. You could there's
Yeah.
a bunch of them that you could use, like Contentful
I think
is
there's
one of
like,
them.
yeah. And it has an actual like API that's ready to go.
Yes.
And it's got all the and you basically just have to preload it with your CMS content.
Right.
And there you go. There's also things like Hasura
Yep.
or Supabase.
Yep. Superbase is another good one. There's
there's
so
a
many,
ton of them out there.
tons.
There's one that I heard about once, Strappy, I've heard is really good.
Yeah, really good, really good.
I actually
What
think
I like,
I think you guys actually reached out to me once to do a video.
no, I like Strappy, by the way. Listen, I'm not. People are gonna be like, "You're a shill. You work there." No, this is People have to understand. I used Strappy before I got hired, and you know, uh, which is kind of interesting, because let me come back to my Strappy story in a second. But there's one thing that I want to ask you. I think it was very important. So you make content. There's a reason you make content. You publish some stuff, and and I set up my YouTube channel to document my journey of learning to code. And I didn't know there was a name for it, but there's like build in public or learn in public, where you kind of open about what you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I did it just to
Yeah.
kind of share what I'm doing, not realizing at the time that you're actually building authority in the space, and you're kind of delivering social proof that you're involved in the community, you're coding. And the reason why I tell the story is because I talked about Strappy over and over again. I built projects with Strappy to a point that they noticed my channel. And then when I applied to their job, they're like, "Oh, this guy really likes our product." And it doesn't have to be Strappy. You could do this with React. You could do it with like Next.js. You could do it with whatever insert technology in,
Yeah.
and just build cool stuff, share it publicly, and tag the company. And when they notice you, now you have an easier way of applying there, because you're now not some random dude, but you're some random dude who has some content around the thing that they're actually doing and selling. And so for you to get a job, it's much easier, I feel. So the question is, I know I'm talking a lot, is do you recommend people, first of all, do this, learn in public and blog, or make a YouTube channel to kind of self-promote themselves and like network in general? Like, if that makes sense. That was like a lot of stuff I said.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I yes, that was terrible. You should never do that again. No. I think we talked about this on React Roundup in a show that's going to come out pretty soon. One definitely cool thing you can do is, hey, you're keeping notes as you're going through, like, I don't know, setting up Firebase on a CRA app, whatever, just as an idea. And you're kind of keeping the list of like, okay, npm install this, configure that, blah blah blah, go over here. You're literally writing a dev2 article. It could even be in Markdown, honestly.
Right. Well,
you
yeah,
just go and take that and just put it on a dev2. Like, there's going to be people who are going to be like, "Oh, thanks for the recipe there, boss." And now you're like, okay, and now I got my name out on that. And that is, wow, that is lightweight content. And I will tell you, as a YouTuber, and you know this, like, if you want to go and build like a really nice video, like, I mean, you got to have your stuff together, right? It's got to have the audio, you got to have the video, you got to have the editing, the blah 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 blah. You got to be able to present and keep it engaging, and you got to like have a cool intro and a cool outro and blah 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 blah. That's a lot of work. Right?
No,
you ain't got
too much
time for
work.
that.
Too much.
Not when you're starting out. That's too much
It's like
work.
grind. Yeah, it's
Nobody got time for that. Yeah, go take your notes, publish them on Dev2. And here's this little secret for you, by the way, when it comes to Dev2, nobody reads the stuff in between the code fragments, right?
Right.
All that wordy stuff that you're saying,
No,
do blah, 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 blah,
this
blah,
sort of
blah,
code example. Yeah.
they don't care. All they want to know is just like, they just want, okay, I npm this, npm that, go over here, change this file, add this in there, and then thanks, boss. See ya.
Yeah, let's see
Like
you
that's
later.
it. They don't care if you they don't care if you write Shakespearean prose in the middle of your whatever. Just write. You could say biscuits and donuts between like every other code sample. People will be like
yeah,
fantastic, done.
As long as the thing installs, they're good for it. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, I was writing all like a database stuff, and it was like I had literally like run this database script to preload the data to create the tables before you run this, and all the comments were like, "It doesn't work," and I'm like, "Did you run that?" I'm like, "No." Did you didn't read the article? And so I ended up like putting comments into the code. Like, you need to go and do this, and then people would read it, like, because it's in the code. It's a comment.
Yeah.
Warning.
The secret word you said, Dennis Ivy likes to jump into my streams because he's amazing. He says, "Great points, Jack. Great points." Dennis Ivy, funny story. He came to do a podcast with me on my channel, and I was like so nervous. I was like, oh my God, he like gave me time and day. I don't remember how many subscribers I had. And I had the worst audio issues to start with, where there was like this double speak happening. It was like really, really awkward. And he still did the show. So I got to give him props. Amazing. Because I would have been like, this guy's not professional. I'm out of here. But what I was going to say, your
Here's
tip
another,
on using...
another YouTube secret for you, right?
Yeah.
Is concentrate on the audio, right?
Yes.
Because people aren't watching us necessarily. I mean, they are maybe watching because you have a cute cat, but like they're not watching you. Like chances are they're listening to you. And then whenever you do something interesting, they're like, oh, wait, hold up. Now we're going to go over to the video and I'm going to go see what he's doing. And then I'm only looking at the code, right? And so, get yourself a really nice mic that sounds good. Like you got a good mic. Clearly, and I finally found a mic that I like. So,
yeah, audio makes all the difference. You can have like the worst like visuals. If your audio sounds good, it's gonna be good. But I was gonna say your tip about Markdown is phenomenal because you could just parse. Like if you write it in Markdown and you're using React, you could just parse it to JSX or whatever, and you have your blog. Like it's so easy to do. You literally, there's not that much work to do. Like it's like, so I'm like, that's why I started using Obsidian, and I'm able to commit my Markdown stuff to GitHub, and then it's so easy if I wanted to put it in the blog. So,
and you get paid for this, by the way. This is actually a gig.
Actually, that's a good point.
On React Roundup. Yeah. We actually have folks who are on React Roundup, and we mine like articles. Like if you do Medium and you talk about React, chances are you're going to get a call from React Roundup, like, or an email, like, "Hey, you want to come on the show?" Blah, blah, blah. If it's someone interesting.
By the way,
other companies will pay you to do this.
By the way, I put the link to React Roundup in the chat. You guys check it out. It's also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the good places. But it's interesting that you bring up that point. Like, you're going to get paid. Strappy does the same thing. They look for content creators to write good content. And this is exactly brings up that point that I said before. If you're actively creating content around the tech that you want to use, you are going to get noticed. And that's one way to kind of build awareness. Because if nobody knows you exist, like sending out resumes blindly is going to be difficult. So the follow-up question to that would be like, how would you rate networking, and how important from 1 to 10 is it? Because a lot of people think like, oh, I'll just learn to code and I'll be okay.
It's like 15.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. First off, be nice. So a lot of this is just interpersonal skills. Just be a nice person. Like, I can't tell you the number of times when it's like you're on a team and you got some dude who's just mean and is like, to feel like that the guys who've been in the business for 20 years you were talking about, who are like just jerks, like they just hanging stuff over you, like, look at what I know that you don't know. okay, you know, it makes you feel like crap. And nobody wants. You could be a 10x programmer. Nobody wants to deal with that, right? Just be a nice guy. Just try and help people out, right? Honestly, I've seen people who have had their jobs saved because, like, if we got rid of that guy, the team morale would suffer. He's just a good guy to have around. Yeah, kind of thing.
Listen, you're
You know
you're
what I'm
spreading
talking
all my
about, right?
secrets. You're spreading all my secrets, man. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
just
want
be
to
a
be the
nice guy.
nicest guy when
Yeah,
they able to fire someone. I want him to think this, like, he works kind of slow, but he is
you're
really,
the
really
last guy
nice.
you're gonna fire.
He's like, but he's really, really nice. And so it's funny you say that because my not the
Yeah,
company that I work for now, but the last company I worked, my boss literally said to me like, we hired you because you're a nice guy. You work with the team really good. Yeah, it takes you a little bit to get stuff
yeah,
done, but everybody enjoys working with you, and all the rest of the stuff you're gonna learn. And I was like, is this a compliment or what? Like, I don't know. Like, what are you trying to say to me right now? But
yeah.
it was funny.
Which
So,
would you rather
and
have, a feature in 10 minutes by a jackass,
yes,
or
one hundred
a
percent.
feature in an hour by somebody who can be a nice guy, who doesn't like give the product manager all the grief, who works with the product manager and ask, hey, do you like the fonts here? Do you like the color? How do you like the spacing? We change all this stuff. You know, it's good. It's good. Everybody likes that. And what'll happen is you will go, like, they'll want you for the next job. Like, you're doing okay.
Right.
You are a good person when people are like, hey, I want to work with you again.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Let's
that's so
I got this
big.
great job. Come on over.
Yeah. And
It's huge.
what's interesting is that, like, a lot of the jobs that I got is through a referral, and then, like, it was always because people like, oh, I worked with Paul before. He's a really nice person to work with. It's always like it
Yeah.
matters. It's not just like just your skill alone. Like, if you're a complete jerk, nobody will want to work with you, even if you're like the star developer. Uh, like, unless like you work at a place where you have some secret knowledge and they can't fire you, which sometimes happens. But
That's not the way. That's not why you want to be there, man. Like
right,
that.
exactly.
That's you don't want to be the bus factor guy. It gets real old real fast.
Yeah, yeah. So here's great question. Somebody says, I'm not reading it, but I like like all of it, but like the gist of it. How much JavaScript do you need to know before working on algorithms and blah blah blah? And I think that I'm just assuming what Christopher means is this frustration with a lot of people, like, say, algorithm data structures, and a lot of people may be spending a lot of time doing that before knowing how to build a project. And so, in my opinion, my humble opinion, being some dude on the internet, is that you need to be able to build something first before you dive into any algorithm and data structure, like on lead code or whatever. Because to me, it's like, if you can't build something, then in my opinion, you can't produce at the job that you're working in. Because every job that I had, the
Yeah.
most complex thing that I had to do up to this point is to be like, oh crap, if I use a array, it takes forever, so I just need to use an object so I could
Right.
look by.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's like
Yeah.
like the easiest thing
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
gonna know. So I feel like, what's your
Totally.
opinion
Totally.
on that
Yeah.
on
JavaScript,
that
you only get like big O is like, yeah. JavaScript big O is like O n squared versus O1. You just got to get to O1, but not
Yeah.
even then. Like 90% of the time, you only have like 20, 30 elements on the screen, like rows in the table or whatever.
Yep.
You could do n quadrillionth, and it doesn't matter. Like it's 20. Like, it doesn't matter. So yeah, it doesn't. I don't understand why people ask, you know, here, make a doubly braided linked list. Like, when was the last time you actually had to
Yeah.
make a doubly braided linked list?
I don't
And
know.
by the way, which are the literally 2 million, I want to say, or at least 200,000. I guess maybe I'm one by an order of magnitude off. NPM modules is going to have your data
Right.
structure, right?
Yeah.
And every single language is going to have any decently popular language, C sharp, C++. They've all got this stuff, at the core level.
I
Like,
like how you didn't
I
say
got. I mean,
JavaScript for some reason. Just
I
kidding.
love JavaScript.
I'm
I
kidding.
do
No,
JavaScript all the
no,
time.
no,
I
no,
use JavaScript,
no,
but what
no, I'm
you
just kidding.
know. I will say I did. Okay, so here's a fun one though about data structures and algorithms. So I I'm a like a really bad guitarist. Like I'm terrible. But I do know like one thing that really clicked for me was like music theory. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to go build this thing that allows me to make a chord book on any instrument in any tuning. And I called it like
Right.
the Fret Navigator. And so I built it when I was 20 in C on Mac. I
Oh
rebuilt
wow.
it on Python on the web later. It's kind of like my go-to thing if I want to learn something. Actually, I should, you know what? I should write it in Dart. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So, but every time I keep getting, I make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit better. And I had a mentor. I still have a mentor actually, who's a science guy. And I said, hey, I need an algorithm that gives me, like, if I have a chord, yeah, at this position on the guitar, give me all the chords that are around it, basically nearest neighbors. And he said, oh, okay. So what you want is you want a KD tree, which is, and I love this because it's a kind of thing that like sounds so hot. It is nearest neighbors in an n-dimensional space. And when you think about a guitar chord, it's actually a 6-dimensional coordinate, right? And so how cool is that, right? You're basically, you can go and like put all your chords into this
Yeah. Wow.
structure and immediately in O something, O log n time, find all the nearest neighbors. And it's cool. And so, like, every once in a while, I try and teach folks this algorithm because I think it's just a really neat algorithm. Not that I
Yeah.
use it all the time, and I've never
Right.
written it, but
Yeah.
but it's
Actually.
really cool. And I used it at Nike actually to help people find replacement shoes because at Nike they rolled stock and inventory so quickly that like you we never had the same shoe in stock like 6 months later.
Yeah.
So you always
That's
want to
crazy.
find
Wow.
like, and if you're a runner, you find a good fitting shoe, you want to find another one like it. And so I used literally a KD tree to figure it out, and we made money. Nike always makes money, but they made a lot. They made some good money on that. And then I actually did a video recently on finding like a GPU. If you do all the metrics against all the GPUs, like, hey, I want
Yeah.
a 3090. Give me,
Yeah.
but I can't find one. Give me some cards that are competitive with that. Again, you can think about a card as like an n-dimensional coordinate space.
Yeah.
Little things like that. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm way going
No, no,
off
no.
on a
It's
tangent here,
it's
but
fine. It's fine.
I just love that stuff. But on the algorithm stuff, like honestly, if you don't get the job because you can't like I reverse a linked list, I would just never ask it. It's just stupid. Like
Yeah. No,
I
it
would
makes
I would
sense.
much rather spend my valuable time interviewing you, asking you about things that you will actually do
Do your
on the
job.
job.
Yeah.
Like when I
Yeah.
yeah, when I interview somebody for a React job, shocker, I ask React questions. I ask about hooks. I ask about use effect and set interval and how those two things jibe together, right? Because if you don't know how to do that, you're going to mess up my code base, right?
Right. Right.
Linked lists, what do I care
It's
about
not
that?
on the. Yeah. Who cares? So there's a great question, and I don't know if you're familiar with a channel called Coder Foundry, but she said I was watching Coder Foundry
Hmm.
yesterday for the first time, and he was saying to build a full stack bug tracker for a dev portfolio. Thoughts? Thank you. And let me just like kind of put things into context. So they use ASP.NET and C Sharp, and so any project you start, it is going to be a full stack application. Just and
That
like
works.
Visual Studio Code literally sets it up for you, like very nicely and easily. And there's like that's how they build their application. They follow the MVC
Developers,
pattern.
developers, developers.
Yeah, right. And so like the reason why they say build a bug tracker or a full stack application is because that's how that works. Like it's very hard to make a decoupled. It's not impossible. You could make a decoupled ASP.NET API and then build a React application. That's all. I think that's how I would do it. But in general, they follow like their basic MVC pattern and blah 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 blah. But they're saying from the
Yeah.
standpoint, basically understand how to work with an API, understand basic authentication,
Yeah.
create, read, update, and delete. And I feel like if we were to break it down to the equivalent of what this says, you could even like if you're a JavaScript person, you could like I'm not like, I love Firebase. I don't use it much, but like if to break it down, you could literally use Firebase and then create a React front end and have your authentication and full CRUD functionality, and there goes your full stack application that you could build to kind of showcase. And I feel like, in my humble opinion, I think if you want to stand out, like I would, like, I'm not saying you should be a backend developer, but this is the type of application you have. And luckily you have Firebase or Superbase or like whatever CMS you want to insert that allows you not to be a backend developer, but build a full stack application that's going to look pretty impressive at your interview, I guess. Um, and I think that's something you mentioned
I
in terms of like,
completely agree that you should have like code sandbox stuff and things like that on your GitHub, and GitHub links on your profile. Now, I guess I'm just really bored by bug trackers. Like, I of all the projects that I would choose to make, I'm just like, a bug tracker.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
God, with my own time, really?
yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm a part-time woodworker, right? So that's
Right.
another thing that
It's
I do,
like
right?
yeah,
I'm always about making things, right?
yeah,
And my daughter, she wanted like the thing that goes at the foot of the bed that holds like the blankets, right? And we were designing it, and she's like, I want it to look like IKEA. Like, why would you go and build
to say that to a woodworker,
woodworking?
that's hilarious to me, because like I have a friend who's a
Right?
woodworker. If I
Right?
said that to him,
And
he'll punch me in the face.
yeah, exactly. But I don't
It's
know if you're a
like,
parent or not. But of course, guess what it
yeah,
ended up
yeah.
looking like? It ended up looking like IKEA, right?
Yeah,
And we
that's
even
funny.
went to IKEA and got the freaking IKEA white and painted it IKEA
That's
white,
hilarious.
and it fit
That's
in with all
hilarious.
her IKEA furniture. But
Yeah.
when you said make a bug tracker, I'm like, why? Like,
Yeah.
of all the things, like a bug tracker?
For
Oh
me,
God.
I like, so this is why I say like why I feel it's a good idea, because if you could make a bug tracker, you understand basically CRUD, you understand
Yeah.
basic,
Absolutely.
right. And so like you don't have to make a bug tracker, but basically I feel like you should
Yeah,
have some authentication, some
yeah.
basic permissioning where a logged in user can't see like other people's stuff, and then CRUD. And it could be like a fancy to-do app for all I like whatever. But the point is, I
Yeah.
feel like that if you understand that in the basic sense, you will be able to be productive and you'll be able to stand out in your like interview. And every job I had, it was always like create the front end to work with this back end. So it's like the stuff that I feel like if you understand, it'll be easier to get a job. So, and I know we're kind of getting close to time because I could talk forever, but I just want
I
to be
could too.
mindful of your,
This has been great.
yeah, like
Okay, let me
so
let me
like
throw out a different idea for you though. Like, okay,
let's do it. Let's do it.
so
I
you're
just want
into like
wanted to bring
maybe
that up. Time.
magic.
Yeah. Because
Okay,
I don't want you to get I don't want you to
but
get in trouble. That's all I'm saying.
well, let's at least try and throw out some more interesting
Yes,
projects.
yes,
For
yes.
God's
Let's
sakes,
do it.
I
Let's
totally
do it.
get where
Let's
you're
do it.
coming from. Like, come on, yeah, you want to demonstrate that you know CRUD, but like, let's say that you like Magic the Gathering, right?
Yeah.
Like, build a site where you can like make decks of Magic the Gathering cards and trade them with your friends. That would require auth. That requires
Yeah, that's
CRUD.
true.
That
That's true too.
requires
Yeah, and that's a
searching. That
fun
requires all of
project.
that
Yeah.
stuff. But it's a far more entertaining
Yeah,
app
it's a fun
than
project.
a bug
So
god awful bug tracking site.
So this is the funny part. Like you're like, it's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. And I'm like, it's utility first. Utility first. It's got to.
If you're gonna do your
gotta
own thing,
no,
man,
it's got to
like,
be fun. It's got to be fun.
Make
It's
a
gotta be,
wine tracker of all things.
100%. 100%. I'm actually like want to create like a daily motivation app that
Yeah, that
in the
sounds
morning
good.
shows like daily motivation, but then also want to implement
Right.
some sort of chatbot that reminds you like, hey, you didn't exercise today, why don't you like do like, so there, you're right, there's fun ways to do things, and I think doing that,
I am
like, I think it'll
absolutely
be
sure
cool.
you can get VC funding nowadays for that. Done.
Yeah,
Make it
yeah,
happen.
yeah, and so
A
but
Discord
again,
bot that would like get on me about not working out.
yeah,
Sold.
yeah, so good, so good, so good. So I know, like, you're hungry, you want to have dinner, so I do want to be mindful of your time. So the last, because we could always do this again at some point, but I don't want you, be like, oh man, the guy doesn't care about anything. All he wanted to do is talk. But
What are you doing?
I really appreciate. I really appreciate.
I had a
you being
great
here.
time.
No, I know
This
you
is
did, but
like
listen.
the
First
hour
of
has
all,
flown by.
let me tell you this. Like, I have a significant other as well, and I'll tell her, like, honey,
Oh, okay, all
it'll
right,
be
fine,
no,
okay.
but no, no. Let me just say
I
this.
know where you're coming from.
I'll be like, honey, it'll be an hour, and then she'll be like 2 hours
Okay,
later. What happened?
yeah,
And so I understand,
yeah,
and I get it. I want to be respectful on both sides. But before you go, the obviously two places people could find you on your YouTube, Blue Collar Coder, and then on React Roundup. Are there any other places that you like to be found on? Obviously Twitter also, and I'll post like the stuff in the comments here for
yeah.
people.
Twitter, sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so with that,
LinkedIn, Twitter.
yeah, yeah, Twitter is an interesting
Not
place.
that, yeah. LinkedIn is like,
Boring, but I feel like when you try to get a job, you
it
need to
is.
have LinkedIn. It's like so annoying. So before you go, first of all, I want to say
Oh my
thank you.
god.
Amazing
Yeah.
conversation. And before you go, anything
Thank
that you
you.
want to
This has been
leave
great.
us with as a last thing that if you could give us one advice, what would it be?
If I give you one
I
advice,
know, such a difficult question. I'm really good at stealing people's time.
it really is. I mean,
It's like,
no, no, no. I mean,
let me ask this
the
one
biggest thing is
question.
like the subtext of this entire time has been basically build stuff, right?
Yes,
Don't
yes,
just
100%.
you know learn and do the YouTube videos and the reading and all that sort of stuff. All it just is no, because none of that is going to write code for you. The only thing that's going to write code for you is you. So you got to
Yeah,
do it,
yeah,
and you've got to understand the code that you write.
yeah. So
So that's it. Yeah,
you
build
said
stuff.
this is the most amazing like point, and I just wanna before I let you go, this is the final thing I'm gonna say. So what you just said,
Final,
100% true. 100% true, because here's the thing that I started live coding myself just to kind of get into a habit of doing it. And what I realized, when you make mistakes and
Hey,
when you
hold
fix
on.
them
Okay,
yourself.
okay. Can I interrupt though? I have
Yeah.
one question.
Yes.
I have questions about
Okay.
this. Not I or more just one.
Okay.
I personally worry about putting out YouTube videos that have mistakes, technical mistakes. There's lots of mistakes in my videos. Believe me, there's lots. But technical mistakes, those are the ones where I'm like, ugh, I worry about that.
Yeah.
So if I were to go and just live stream over time, right, there would be videos out there where I would have
Yeah.
bad code,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you start coding in a new
Never.
thing, you have no idea,
Yeah.
right? But when people search, they're going to find your code and they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's not good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that code isn't indicative of the skill level that you have now.
Right.
So do you
Right.
retire the old videos?
No, so what I do, like I blatantly say, first of all, like want to say the difference is you have 40 years, 42 years of experience, and I don't, so I could get away with being like, hey, this is what I'm saying, like the idea of like learn in public where it's like, hey, this is what I'm building on, and I'm upfront, like I'm probably gonna make a mistake, and I try to involve people on the live stream so I'm never doing
That
a,
is super helpful.
so
I
I'm
haven't
never,
had my butt saved by
yeah.
commenters.
So I'm never doing a video like this. Hey, I'm live coding today. I'm the best coder ever. This is how you do it. You all guys suck.
This is
Blah blah blah
flawless
blah blah blah.
code.
You know what I mean? Like this
There's
is
no mistakes in
flawless
this
code.
code.
No, I started with like, hey, this is something that I'm learning, and if you guys like, I want to
Okay.
include you guys to show you what it's really like in real life. And everybody makes mistakes. And if you guys see something that I made, and like the argument that I make, if I know something that you don't, you're gonna learn something. And if you know
Yeah.
something that I don't, you're gonna help me out. So there's like plenty of I feel like as long as you're not pretending to be somebody that you're not, and you're not saying, hey, this is the way to do it. Because I make tutorial videos, which are not live coding, where I'm like, this is a pattern that I saw at work. It works. This is what people typically use. I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to put a nice video about it. Because like I don't want to have videos basically what you said where there's a mistake or a bad example. But live coding, I look at it as like live learning. I'm like I'm literally trying to capture that
Sure. Okay.
experience. What would
That
it
makes
be
sense.
like at home? Yeah, so I totally get it, and 100%. And what's interesting, the reason why I do it is because a lot of people are afraid, exactly what you just stated. Like they're afraid that someone's going to judge them, so they're not willing to try things. And so they keep doing tutorials, but never putting themselves out there. And I think at the beginning, it's like super important to kind of be like, hey, just starting out. I'm new. I'm gonna make mistakes, but at least if you involve the community, you're gonna get like help back in return. And so that's why I do it. But we'll see. Maybe it'll bite me in the butt. Like the funny thing is, I just started working at
No,
Strappy,
no,
and
I think you're doing it right. I think I'm doing it wrong.
no, you're doing
Yeah.
it right
No.
too. Like I think there's many ways
I'm
to do
learning
it
from
right.
you.
No, listen, there's many ways of doing things right, or and it depends where you're on your journey. But the funny thing is, the new company I work for, once in a while, somebody like, hey, you're that guy on that YouTube channel. I'm like, oh my god, what did they see? What did they see? They're gonna like fire me tomorrow. But at the same time, it's like, like I think like for me at least, for anybody who's starting out, and maybe once you got to a certain point, yeah, you want to make sure you put your like best foot forward. But for me starting out, I much rather publicly do stuff to kind of show like, hey, I'm involved in this community. I want to learn together. I want to create a community around learning and not being afraid of building stuff than not being afraid to execute. You know what I mean? And so to me, that's like that big
Mhm.
thing. So, but yeah, I'm listen,
Well,
I
I
had
hope the people at work understand what it takes to
exactly.
be where you are. Like, yeah, if 5,000 subscribers that's oh my god, that is so hard to
Yeah.
get to. It is
Yeah.
incalculably hard to get to,
Yeah. It's so
and
insane.
you hats off, really.
No, but listen, it's like channels like yours that have me have faith in like, hey, it's still possible to get this stuff done. Because YouTube is
Yeah,
a
some
vast
53-year-old
ocean.
dude
Yeah,
can do
vast
it.
ocean. No, but listen, like there's a lot of YouTubers out there, and there's a difference between are you learning to code to be a YouTuber or you're learning to code to have a job and be productive and not get fired. And there's certain individuals that you'll be better off following if you want to keep your job and continue growing as a developer. And so a lot of people say to me like, oh, you're doing YouTube, whatever. Listen, I make money from my job. YouTube, if anything, it costs money for
Yeah,
me
yeah,
to
yeah,
sit
yeah,
here
yeah.
and do stuff. So you know what it's like.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so for
no.
me,
No, dude.
listen, I don't want to
Oh,
waste my
dude.
time. I
No.
don't want to waste anybody else's time. That's why like to have you as a guest to me is like amazing because I'm like, this guy is like a legit developer who been doing it all his life. So whatever feedback or tips he's gonna give, it's gonna save people time. And it's gonna make a difference because literally it's a hard industry to get into. Like if you're honest about it, but it's so
Mhm.
rewarding if you could do it because it literally changes lives. It really does. But yeah, again, thank you for your time,
Yeah.
and I hope we'll have more conversations because it's just so much fun. I had a blast. So
It was great. It was great.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. So
Okay.
all of you
Sounds
guys
good.
who
I will
joined
let
the
you get back to your significant other, and I will go and get some dinner. Get back
yeah,
to my
sounds
significant other.
good. Thank you so much, and we'll chat again. Take care.
All right.